a leader. And that comes back to the self-identity piece. Because here's the thing, saying you want to lead a movement or create a revolution is one thing, but deciding it is your reality and embodying it in the here and now is quite another.
Welcome to Wild and Finally Fucking Free, hosted by me, soul-fueled storyteller Kylie Patchett. We dive into the truth-talking, unedited stories of metamorphosis, growth, and evolution. I deeply believe that sharing our stories holds transformative magic. Join us to listen to future humans, change agents, extraordinary ordinary people, healers and paradigm shifters as we honour the power of our messy, magical stories. Let's get wild and finally fucking free together.
Well, hello there. Welcome to the first solo episode in a little while. And I want to open with this perler. If I said to you, the truth is, you don't have a I don't know what to say problem. What you really have is a I don't feel safe and confident saying what I truly want to say and stepping into my limitless potential problem. So yes, this episode is for you listeners. If you have got a business and it is not necessarily fulfilling you in terms of feeling like it's capturing your magic and the full potency of the message that you've got in the world. And what I will say is, if you relate to what I just said, which is I don't feel safe and confident saying what I truly want to see, I want to remind you that shouting louder and longer with a specific marketing strategy is not going to help you unless you first crystallize what you stand for in this next evolution of your work. Crystallize how you are calling in your ideal clients and who you are calling in. Understanding exactly how to express your new paradigm, because if you are a rebel, a disruptor, a revolutionary, like a lot of my audience, what often happens as paradigm shifters is that we are the people that have to go first, right? And that comes with a whole heap of scariness about, can I really say that? Can I really be the thought leader of that? Can I step up here? And the final piece is shouting louder and longer is not going to help unless you also understand how to use storytelling to speak directly to your ideal client's heart. And even if you're doing all of those things that I just mentioned, you're not going to be able to hold the space of a thought leader unless you are also tending to the needs of your animal body, excavating the boldest, clearest, most unapologetic expression of your true voice, and also expanding your capacity to be seen, heard, and recognized as a leader. And that comes back to the self-identity piece. Because here's the thing, saying you want to lead a movement or create a revolution is one thing, but deciding it is your reality and embodying it in the here and now is quite another. And without your crystal clear message and the foundations of emotional and energetic health and receivership, you cannot be a channel that is clear enough to actually receive the full potency of your work and shine it out into the world. And that means that you're leaving impact, influence, and yes, income on the table. But also, let's face it, if you're here to shift the paradigm, and I'm recording this just before the US election in November 2024, the world's in a pretty, I'm not going to mince my words, we're screwed at the moment. There's so many things that are going wrong in our world. However, I do believe it is because we need to be in enough pain that enough of us step up as thought leaders and lead the world to actual change. And we are right at the edge of that pendulum, if not tipped over already by the time you actually hear this. And here's the thing, to be a full thought leader and to really claim the identity of someone who can fully contribute to the world, you actually need the balance of two equally important components. And it's not enough just to put a perfect strategy, and I'm air quoting very, very ironically, a healer or a helper or a paradigm shifter that's comfortable working one-on-one or in small groups to someone who is actually the go-to thought leader, who is actually expanding their reach and their reputation across far, far more individuals, communities, families, towns, countries. there's two equally important components. They are crystal clear messaging, as I often talk about in storytelling, but also expanding their energetic capacity to be seen as a leader. So I am centering this episode very much around what can get in the way of that. But before we get to there, I want to share a little story about I'm working with Sam Garcia at the moment of Regenerative Business, the book, but I'm in one of her masterminds. And something that she has given us as a resource is a meditation that allows you to connect to your ideal clients and basically invite them into a metaphorical party or gathering. And I had the most amazing experience where she's saying, imagine that what the people look like and how they sound and what they're wearing and da da da. And what I ended up creating in this meditation is basically the modern day equivalent of the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. And what I mean by that is we were outside in a gorgeous lush garden with all these beautiful flowers blooming and a wisteria growing over a big archway that we were sitting underneath, and there's dappled sunlight. And then you get to the people, and they are the people in the quirky outfits and the colorful, the big colorful glasses and the hair up into, weird ponytails at the end. And really, to me, that represents the fact that the people who are the people that have always been out of the box, who have always been the ones that have been told that they're too loud or too sensitive or too sparkly or don't fit in. So the misfits, the rebels with the cause, the revolutionaries, the people that are always challenging authority or challenging the status quo. You are my people because I am one of you as well. So one of the things that I work a lot with clients about is understanding who they're calling in. And I am specifically putting it out there that you are officially invited to the Kylie Patchett Mad Hatter's Tea Party, which is basically full of the coolest people who will actually lead the world out of the cluster F that it's in and into some semblance of a healing state across, time and space. So, having called you into the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, I also want to share a little bit of a revelation that's been forming for me over the last year or so, I would say. And that is that in my first iteration in business, and if you're new to the show, quick backstory, I was in business for 7 years. Then I left, went back to corporate for 5 years, and now this is my second entrepreneurial trip around the flagpole, as I'm calling it at the moment, because it's Beltane in Australia when I'm recording this. So I've got a maypole firmly in my mind's eye. So in the first trip around entrepreneurship, I had a lot of stuff working in the background. So it is true that I was earning multiple six figures. And it's also true that I had zero emotional or energetic capacity to enjoy my life outside of my business because I was bleeding myself dry because of problems with voice, visibility, conditioning, and identity. So I wanted to share a little bit about my realizations now, just to let you know that you're actually in safe hands when you're doing this work with me, because I have literally lived and breathed this work myself. And I understand the serious frustration of being able to get to a stage in your business, but never, ever being able to really claim the fullness of your desires and the fullness of your potency and your message and your magic, because we're always holding back. And the reason for me now, I look back, is that, back in those days, I did, I was very trained in mindset coaching. So it was all across my mindset, and I was aware of conditions and patterns and all sorts of things. But sometimes you cannot see your own patterns because they're like the ocean that you're swimming in, right? So, that's why coaches have coaches. That's why we can't necessarily self-examine and self connect necessarily as easily as it is to see someone else's pattern. And looking back now, I had three things that really anchoring me into unsustainable business practices, which led me to burnout, basically. So the reason I blew up my first business is, on the surface, something happened in my family where one of my very close family members had a serious accident. And I have often said that I just didn't have the emotional or energetic capacity to carry on. And that is true. I was coaching a lot one-on-one and also had 2 large groups going. And what became very apparent to me was that I didn't have the ability to continue to hold space for people in coaching sessions when my entire life felt like it was imploding. But also, if I'm honest, I had known for quite some time that my business was unsustainable, and I was absolutely freaking exhausted, even before the big thing that happened. And it was actually relief to think about going back to a job, because all of the freedom, all of the desire to have a voice in the world, all of this beautiful, heart-driven, wanting to contribute to the world had been dampened so much because I had literally created a business model that was like having, well, it was like having another full-time job, except it was longer hours than a full-time job because I was connected pretty much 24/7. And here's the three things that I reckon was really impacting that. Number one, I was very well conditioned to work hard to make money, like a lot of us have been in capitalist culture. So we have been trained that our work is connected to our worth, and therefore more hours equals more worth. And particularly for me, having a bit of a rocky foundation of self-worth, really, because of the chaos that happened in my childhood. That was a way that I shored myself up. That's the way that I felt confident. And that's the way that I felt that I needed to work to earn being a coach and a leader and leading other people. I couldn't allow it to be easy, and I couldn't allow it to be light and joyful, because if you told me that back then, I would have been like, that's too good to be true. That's like a pipe dream. The second thing that was going on was actually something else I wanted to mention about the money end of things is I never ever felt poor as a kid, but I definitely got some very interesting messages around money from both of my parents. My dad was born in the Depression. When he died, we found notebooks with every single cent that he'd spent since the 1950s catalogued in it. So you can imagine, I never felt that he was being miserly towards me, but he certainly had a need to track, and the word that comes to me is control each and every cent going in. And then on the other side, my mum and dad broke up just before interest rates in Australia went up to 17%. So she had bought her house on a single person salary, and then mortgages went up to 17%. And I remember her sitting on a bed, because she's still got this bloody calculator to this day, would you believe? And putting bills and stuff into a calculator and just staring at the sheet and bawling her eyes out. So I definitely grew up receiving some information that, work equals worth. You have to work hard to earn money, and also that money is, it may come in, but it's not something that comes easily, and it has to be controlled on the way out. That was one thing that was going on. The second thing that was going on was that I still had so much untended trauma under the surface of me as an individual, which, if you've listened to the show across all the seasons, you will have heard me talk about mental health crisis hitting perimenopause, and the fact that all the trauma that I'd successfully stuffed down with my numbing strategies of eating myself numb failed to work anymore in perimenopause. And I ended up, I thought I was having a nervous breakdown, but I wasn't. It was just trauma. Hey, gorgeous. We interrupt this gold for a delicious invitation. If your whole body has been whispering more lately, more voice, more truth, more satisfaction, more clients of the soulmate variety, more cash, more you, then this invitation is for you. Potent
My sister mind is officially open. This is my high touch, holy fuck, I'm ready sister mind for rebels in good girl clothing who are done outsourcing their power and diluting their magic to fit into someone else's business formula. If you have been craving a space where your strategy, your voice, and your energy all get to be offered, honored, refined, and amplified, this is it. Inside of Potent, you'll get my eyes on your business every single week, copy mentoring, and that is for brand copy and content storytelling that turns your truth into client catnip, energetic recalibration that helps you unhook old learned limitation patterns, keeping you quiet, not being seen, not being heard, real-time, high-touch, one-on-one coaching that actually sees the bigness of your vision, and the kind of sisterhood that does not flinch when you show up in your full, messy, brilliant, phoenix rising from the ashes glory. This isn't surface level support. It's deep, potent, paradigm shifting work that changes who you are as a woman in business and a woman in life. We start in August. Early open access is open right now. For the month of June 2025, inside of this early access open doors period, you will receive juicy bonuses, extended payment plans, and access immediately to my entire library of storytelling gold. You'll find all the juicy details at kyliepatchett.com/potent. And we fill spaces, and there's only 10 of them, and more than likely only 5 by the time you listen to this, because by that time I will have offered them to the existing cohort, the beautiful original OG circle. We do actually take applications on a first come, first served basis. So come and apply, and let's get back to the magic of the episode. Erupting from underneath the surface. As a result of that, the blessing of that, as much as it was painful at the time, was that I ended up going into intensive narrative psychology therapy, but I also had the blessing and the ability to seek the support of multiple different practitioners in terms of energetic support, and also straight out health support like acupuncture and, regular massage and whatnot. So that was something else that was going on. And what was the result of that untended trauma, which I didn't even realize that I had any trauma back in the days when I had my first business. Still telling myself the glad game about my childhood then. And what I can see now is in my coaching sessions, I was going in with a very well-conditioned caretaker, very active. So the part of me that had been conditioned to take care of a parent who was battling with addiction and mental health issues was then taking over the seat when I was coaching my clients. And so as a result, I can now see that there was a hell of a lot of leaky boundaries and a hell of a lot of over responsibility from my end of things. And as a result, that meant that my behavior was disempowering my clients. And so number one, it made coaching a very heavy thing for me to do energetically. But number two, because of the energy I was going into coaching, what I was doing was putting up a bat signal in my marketing and in my copy that was speaking the energy of someone who would take over responsibility. And so guess what I was getting? Clients who needed me or wanted me, not needed me, wanted me, or were looking, because I don't want to put everyone in the same boat, because that is not true of all the clients I worked with back then. So I need to be clear on what I'm saying here. It often put a bat signal out that was a good match for people that didn't want to take full responsibility for their businesses. They wanted to come into something and they wanted me as a coach to wave the magic wand, and or if they were in health and life coaching containers with me, people that were stuck in patterns of
I don't have choice and power and control. And so therefore, we're presenting with the same issues again and again. So that was going on in the background. And then the third thing was I had massive imposter syndrome. And if you'd asked me then, I don't think I would have actually agreed with myself. But looking back, I was showing about 10% of myself because I still felt like I needed to be more professional. I needed to be more polished. I needed to be definitely people pleasing. So there was some active fawning going on. So I look at some of the marketing and even the website that I had back in this day and age, and I just think, oh my goodness, it almost looks like my branding is like Stepford Wives version of me. And I really do, honestly, now that I've been doing lots of voice and visibility and identity work, I really believe that I had a lot of like, who the hell am I to say that I am a good coach? Who am I to say that I can help people with their self-growth and development? Who am I to say to, be speaking to people about how to market their businesses? And then I had lots of conversations with friends back in those days where there was this big kind of house of cards thing that was going on in the coaching industry where it felt like there was a lot of coaches coaching coaches to coach coaches, which to me is just a pyramid scheme. And it was back in the days when, and this is, I'm talking like 2014, 15, where lots of people, there was a segment of the coaching industry that was selling $10,000 a day VIP experiences to train people to also sell $10,000 a day VIP experiences. And it was all very bro marketing, FOMO, push the pain point, pressure people to make a decision kind of marketing tactics, which had never, ever felt true and right for me as a way of treating another human being. And so I had conversations like that. And I'm like, I just don't want to be associated with the coaching industry at the moment. And I can see that all I was doing was looking for myself to have an out. Because yes, there was a segment of the coaching industry that was like that, but it wasn't everybody. And I could have easily stood up as an example of someone who was different. But because I had raging imposter syndrome in the background, of course, I didn't. So all of that to say that back then I had, in inverted commas, the right strategy, but what was massively missing was identity, voice, and visibility. And so this time around in entrepreneurship, because I restarted my business when I had just had like 12 months of very rocky mental health during my perimenopause and trauma resurfacing, I had far less resources, energetically, emotionally, time-wise, mental health-wise. And so I wasn't able to abuse myself in an ill-fitting business model as what I was able to when I was in my 30s and had unlimited energy. And so what all of those things that I just spoke about created was this, working very freaking hard and not having any, spare energy outside of my business. This time around, I went in going, right, I know I don't want to be an employee. I know that freedom is my highest value above everything. I also know that to go into entrepreneurship, I am going to need to be very, very aware of not repeating, or adding to the mistakes that I made in the first iteration. And this is where I want to be talking about the fact that I felt like I'd failed my business the first time because I took the strategy of other coaches that I'd worked with and I whacked it over my business. But the missing pieces were understanding that it was my own energetic ability and receivership and identity that was either going to allow me to leapfrog or quantum shift my business from, zero income back in this iteration of my business to quickly making similar sort of money to what I was last time, but without the awful, unsustainable sucking myself dry. And I want to say to you, if you're listening to this and you're like, I've been trying this strategy and it's worked for other people, but it won't work for me, please don't judge yourself to say that you've failed to implement the strategy correctly. I want you to like peek under the hood, because I would almost guarantee that, well, actually, there's two things that might be going on. First of all, if you're trying to use someone else's strategy and it's not working for you, that could just be simply that it's not suitable for you as an individual and as a business owner that's in a specific phase, that has specific values, that has a specific lens to view the world. But also, more than likely, there is potentially some foundational visibility blocks or unclear messaging that's kind of missing the key components that you require for business success. And if that's you, this is not to say, OMG, this is horrible, woe is us, it's all going to, go pear-shaped because of that. All it is to say, hey, strategy is one piece, but if your soul and your identity work is not lining up, then you've kind of got like the idea of the three-legged stool. If you think about like strategy being one stool, and then capacity, energetic capacity, and also the identity of thought leader being one of the other stool legs. And if you've got one, obviously the stool doesn't stay up. Even if you've got two, it's very shaky. So I also want to mention the fact that the current social order and the way that we've been socialized, if you identify as female, you have more than likely received conditioning that says you need to be pleasing, you need to be pretty, you need to be a certain way to receive approval, specifically small, white, and blunt. You need to not speak up. You need to not rock the boat. You need to be a good caretaker, a good wife, a good mother, a good blah-de-blah-de-blah. And we are trained from a very young age not to claim the fullness of our desires. So I had a conversation with a client the other day and I said, what do you really want? Like if we closed your eyes and we did this somatic process, we're connecting her to the soul of her business. And the soul of the business had some very clear messages, and they were big, like big, big, big world-reaching things to do next. And this person immediately went into, who am I to do that? I can't do that. And then we did this process where we're helping her to expand her energetic capacity, like just try and for size. And then seeing what came up was the fact that actually she does desire to be a person that contributes to the world, like literally the world stage. But she was also conditioned as a kid not to want too much. She got a lot of messaging about like, you can't have everything. That's not for us, because she grew up middle class, definitely working class flavored background. And so when we actually cleared the way to listen to her deepest desires, they actually also aligned to this big vision. But we have been so trained to dim our desires or downplay them. And what happens is that we're not claiming necessarily, and this is not true for everybody, but it definitely was for me as well. We're dimming our desires. So even with an offering that I've got open at the moment, which is called Seen, I deeply desire to have 200 paradigm shifters in that container. I was just in a coaching call with Sam and I said, I'd really love 200 people. And then I went straight into, but, that's not very likely because, I have a smaller community. I only have 5,000 people on social media. Da, da, da. She's like, hang on a minute. You didn't even allow that desire to pop out of your mouth in its full completion before you started dimming it down and minimizing it. And she said, can you, and this is such a good question, can you hold the pose of being the leader that claims what she really wants? And here's the kicker, goes out into the marketplace acting like the leader who has the capacity to hold space for 200 people. Does that mean that that automatically will open the gates and 200 people will come into that container? No, not necessarily. But what it does mean, if you can try on and connect to that energy of that form of you, whether it's a future self or however you want to say it, a higher self or a guide or whatever, when you can connect to that energy, you go out in the marketplace fully in alignment to the magic of that happening, which then means that you can go into a launch and not be like, well, I know my instinct is to do some more lives, for instance, on Instagram. But because I've got this visibility block and I really don't want to be seen, I'm actually going to pretend that I don't really want the 200 people, because then that will protect me from being seen and being judged and being rejected and being persecuted. And so I'll dim my desire and I'll go out into the marketplace with the expectation that I might get 20 people in this container. And guess what? You leave no room for magic. You leave no room for the universe to jump in and actually support you. But also, you're actually saying to the soul of your business every time you dim its message and your desire, you're saying, I actually can't hold that. So I'm not even available for thinking it might be possible. So instead, I'll stay in, by definition, my comfort zone. And my comfort zone has historically been, going into a launch and not having launches go that well, or going into a launch and wanting to make, $50,000 and making $10,000. But the thing is that if we're not actually claiming our full desires and if we're dimming them down, we can't ever get anywhere near what we truly want, because we're not even going out there speaking from that energy and from that space. So that is some of the patterns I see in clients at the moment, the dimming down. I think the other thing I guess I want to mention in this episode is the reason I'm so passionate about voice and visibility work. And when I say visibility work, I see that as identity work as well, because often what is underneath a fear of visibility or not stepping into claim full visibility is that there's something going under the surface, which is like, there's something not right about me. So I'm not, and like I just said, I'm not professional enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not approval welcoming enough. I'm not, and this could be, I'm not thin enough. I don't look like her. Someone who's a leader doesn't have, wild hair and crazy colored glasses. Well, they do at the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, I can tell you. But, if you're comparing yourself to someone else, like just say, I don't know, if Oprah was someone that you really, really saw as someone that you look up to, and you see her at this stage in her career where she always looks beautifully put together. She's got a whole hair and makeup team, right? And she's got a gorgeous set. She's got studio lighting and all of those things. But Oprah started somewhere. And for Oprah to get to where she is now, she had to actually fully step into the fullness of who she could be in the world. So I think that to be aware of where you're actually telling yourself you need to be somehow different to be a successful business owner or a thought leader or someone who makes a massive contribution to the world. And like I said before, I wasn't in this recording, in something else I was recording, I said, paradigm shifting work is by definition being the pioneer. So yeah, we are going to be the people that go first because we have to. Otherwise, we're not inviting someone into our paradigm shift, right? If we're sitting on the outside of it. And that means that if you're a paradigm shifter, if you're a revolutionary, if you're a visionary leader, often you will be going first and you'll be right on the edge of your comfort zone into the unknown zone of expanding into the next level of receivership and the evolution of your work. So why do we have a comfort zone? And I know many of you will already know this, but basically our protective mechanisms and, the symptoms of having issues with voice and visibility or identity work is, are you always self-deprecating? Actually, that's something that I've noticed that I need to do less of. If you want to go on podcasts, but you never get around to pitching anyone on podcasts, or you'll only let yourself pitch to someone at a particular level of podcast rather than the ones that you really want to be on. Or you get stuck in resistance cycles like procrastination or perfecting, or lots of, like a pattern I used to have is choosing to be in overwhelm a lot. So feeling because I know that as soon as I feel a little bit stressed or if I'm not taking care of my physical and energetic health, my brain tries to tell me the story of like, oh, there's so much to do. I don't even know where to start. I'm so confused. Da, da, da. And it's just a protective mechanism. My brain is just saying, please, can you sit down, put your feet up, go to bed early tonight, go and have a float tomorrow, and actually take care of your human, because your human is the one driving the business bus, right? So the other things that I see also, in terms of common visibility blocks, if we want to assign the kind of fear underneath things, and they're things that I've just like mentioned already in this episode. So being seen can bring up fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of being called out, particularly if you see things in a different way of like, you are really pioneering, like are people going to call me out and say, what evidence do you have of this? Or how do you know that or whatever? And the big one, persecution, and I'm using that word very consciously because I feel like, especially lately, and I guess it's because I often work with healers and helpers, just notice people that have these magical, freaking powerful, ability to see the unseen, ability to like energetically repattern someone's nervous system, like really cool stuff that's also quite nebulous and quite tricky to wrap language around sometimes. But they're stepping short of actually claiming the full power of what they do. So they're often like they get to a certain level, and I will always say that that is, where your comfort zone in. And then they actually will do things like they'll hire a team, but then they'll outsource all the decisions to the team and then blame the team when things don't evolve to the next level. And it's like, hang on a minute. You are the leader. So what part of you is not aligning to actually being the leader and leading this team to where you want them to be and actually receiving the recognition for your gifts? And I think that for a lot of women, like, I don't know, I used to hear people talk about the witch wound and roll my eyes, to be perfectly honest. But now I really do think that is a thing. I think that a lot of us in generations gone past have got lots of connections to people who were literally persecuted for their power and for their magic. Whether they were burned at the stake or whether they had to hide their powers or they had to keep safe and not speak up so that they wouldn't be killed or hunted or jailed or whatever, that has to carry through. It has to carry through as a fear of stepping into full power. The other thing that I will say in terms of practical business strategy is that, again, with the healer and helper end of things, particularly if they're doing something that's quite woo, is that I'm thinking about a specific person that I worked with a couple of years ago that did like spiritual channeling, like was very connected to out there rather than grounded down in our reality, in our world. And because she was up in the clouds so much, she had a really, really hard time grounding her gifts into the physical plane. So being able to speak about them, being able to write about them, being able to invite people into her containers, because she spent so much time with her head up in the ether that she didn't actually have that great connection to down here. And actually, when we worked together, we did storytelling strategy, but what we actually did a lot more of was actually grounding her energy to her physical body and actually helping her to root down into the fact that she was a leader. And yes, it was safe to go up in the clouds and scoot around up there, but if she really did want to actually spread this gift to the world or more people than what she was connecting with, she actually needed to get real about what it meant on the physical plane. All of these examples are to say that when you're thinking about stepping into the fullness of your, like, I feel like what we're talking about is turning potential into potency. And especially if you're aware as a business owner that, you started with a specific style of business or business model or type of services, and you're being called to step into the next depth. and you're being called to kind of come out of the closet as the biggest, boldest, most unapologetic version of yourself, then the invitation is there to combine the two essential ingredients, which is the storytelling and the soul support of energy and identity work. So that is where I get to invite you to something very special. Actually, two things very special. By the time you have heard this, there will have been 7 daily lives on Instagram where I'm actually going to go through the 7 forms of entrepreneurs, which line up to the 7 chakras in the chakra system and the specific ways that voice and visibility blocks show up for each of those types. If you've been in my orbit for a long, long time, these are the anti-entrepreneurs that I used to work with from a mindset perspective. And now I'm adding the additional layer of the voice, visibility, and identity symptoms to those original archetypes. So you can come and connect with me on Instagram to listen to that catalogue. And because they're going to be stored, you'll be able to do that at any time that you're listening to this episode. And if you are listening to this before the 15th of November, 2024, you are also cordially invited to the Mad Hatters Tea Party. No, kidding. To Scene, which is a voice and visibility activation and specifically custom crafted for people exactly like I was talking to at the beginning, the disruptors, the rebels, the revolutionaries. I'm going to run it live one time from the 15th to the 25th of November. And it is specifically to help you with daily activations and also daily action points to build your energetic capacity for connecting to the soul of your work, connecting to your ancestral line and distilling the full potential of your legacy. And then connecting to storytelling, so the strategy piece. So learning how to craft copy that feels just like you, even if you do really out of the box or off the wall or witchy stuff. And then finally, in our final days together, we'll be underpinning those voice and visibility bits by actually sharing some daily devotion rituals to ground the potency of your message. Because what I have really been clear in this iteration of my business is that the two things that have made a massive difference is actually claiming the fullness of my desire and being unapologetically myself. So calling in the people that I want, opening the doors to the Mad Hatters Tea Party and not just like diluting or pleasing or, more appropriate languaging away the full sass and paradox that is me. But also the second thing is actually anchoring into essential energetic and physical self-care so that I actually have the day-to-day, it's a devotional ritual. That's the way to explain it, so that I've got a solid foundation to actually operate my business from, but also to live from, to actually enjoy life and not just pour every single ounce of energy into business. And in those last few days, you'll learn a few 3 to 5 minute practices that you can use daily to pattern interrupt old resistance pattern. We've got a couple of live calls as well, and you've got 3 bonuses, including 3 months access to my Soothe Self-Care Sanctuary for Entrepreneurs Library, which has got over 90 self-care rituals in it at the moment, and we'll have even more in the coming weeks. And you get all of that for just $33, which is a crazy good deal. I, as I said, would love to invite 200 Mad Hatter, paradigm shifter, big, beautiful, unapologetic game changers into that space with me. So if you are ready to ground in the new rules of reality, which is I being myself, my full unapologetic self, means that I am welcoming the fullness of my desires around income, influence, and impact, and also delivering your soul work to the world. I'd love for you to join us. You will find everything at kpcreative.com.au/scene, and the link is in the show notes as well. So I really hope to see you there. I hope that sharing a little bit of my backstory, but also how the voice and visibility piece plays into it really helps for you to offer yourself a bit of self-compassion if you've been kind of striving away with a particular way of doing business and you don't feel like you're getting anywhere. it can be because you've got this stuff in the background that's kind of muddying up or putting dirt on the windshield, and you can't actually be a clear channel for the fullness of your work yet. But give me 11 days and I will give you back a clear channel and a powerful, powerful messenger. So I really hope that you'll join me. And for now, goodbye until we have another solo episode. Toodaloo.
Thanks for tuning in to Wild and Finally Fucking Free. I'm Kylie, your host. And given that I know you would have enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor and subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow freedom seekers. Remember, being seen in all our mess and magic helps heal ourselves and the world, because the world needs more wild and finally fucking free humans. Have a great day.